She showed up 7 months pregnant to a lavish baby shower, only to realize it was timed to make her look late, broke, and unworthy. Stay with me, because the moment she refuses to pay the bill, one violent swing exposes secrets that bring an entire family empire down. Blood dripped onto the marble floor of the exclusive La Hacienda Dorada restaurant in the heart of California. Mariana, 7 months pregnant, instinctively brought her hands to her belly as she fell to her knees. The blow with the heavy wooden menu board had been as unexpected as it was brutal. Around her, the cries of astonishment from the guests seemed distant, as if coming from another world. "My baby," she managed to whisper, feeling a trickle of blood running down her right leg. Doña Carmen, her face contorted with rage, still held the board in her trembling hands. "You ungrateful girl! This is how you repay everything we've done for you," shouted the 60-year-old woman, impeccably dressed in a champagne-colored outfit that had cost more than many people's monthly salary. But to understand how this moment of horror came about, we must go back 3 weeks to when it all began to take shape as a perfect trap. Mariana Lopez had never fit into the Montero family. At 32, a primary school teacher in a public school, she represented everything Doña Carmen despised: simplicity, humble origins, and above all, independence. For the matriarch of the Monteros, owners of one of the most prosperous real estate companies in San Diego County, Mariana would never be good enough for her only son. Daniel Montero had met Mariana at the wedding of a mutual friend. He, a recent architecture graduate from Mexico's most prestigious university, had been captivated by the naturalness and transparency of this woman who danced barefoot when her heels began to hurt her feet. Against all odds and strong family opposition, they married just a year later. "I'm telling you, Daniel, that woman is only after your money. What can a simple teacher offer you?" Doña Carmen repeated constantly, while her daughter Paula, 2 years older than Daniel, nodded disdainfully. But Daniel loved Mariana deeply, and during their 3 years of marriage, he had tried to maintain an impossible balance between his wife and his family of origin. When they announced the pregnancy, he naively thought it would be the perfect time for the waters to calm down. "A grandchild changes everything. You'll see," he had said to Mariana as he caressed her barely bulging belly. She had smiled hopefully, even though deep down, she knew things would not be so simple. One Thursday afternoon, Mariana's phone rang with the melody she had specifically assigned to identify her mother-in-law, a sound that always gave her a knot in her stomach. "Mariana, we're going to organize a baby shower for you and my grandson," announced Doña Carmen, in a tone that brooked no reply. "I've already made a reservation at the Hacienda Dorada. It's the least a Montero deserves." "But Carmen, it's not necessary," Mariana tried to explain. "Please don't start with your feigned humility. It will be next Saturday at 6. Don't be late," she said, before hanging up abruptly. Mariana sighed deeply. It had not been an invitation, but a decree. For days she tried to talk to Daniel about it, but he was immersed in an important project and hardly spent any time at home. "It will only be one afternoon, my love," he finally said, when she managed to mention it to him. "My mother has her temper, but deep down, she wants the best for us and for the baby." On Saturday morning, Mariana received a message from Paula. "Mom says the baby shower has been delayed until 8. Don't worry, it's better this way because of the afternoon heat." Something didn't add up, but Mariana decided not to create any more conflict. That night, she dressed up carefully, choosing a sky blue dress that highlighted her pregnant belly. She wanted to look good, to show everyone that she was happy and radiant, despite the tensions. Maybe this event could be a new beginning, she thought hopefully. At 8 o'clock sharp, she and Daniel arrived at the exclusive restaurant located in the most opulent area of California. To her surprise, the place seemed almost empty. Only a few people remained at a table decorated with blue and white balloons, clearly finishing their evening. "What does this mean?" Daniel asked, confused. Doña Carmen, with a glass of champagne in her hand, approached with firm steps. "Well, you finally deigned to show up. Only dessert is left. The party is practically over, but Paula told me it was at 8, replied Mariana, feeling all eyes judging her. "I never said such a thing," Paula interjected. showing her phone to those present. "Look at the message I sent you. 6 o'clock." Mariana took out her own phone, but the message had mysteriously disappeared. A blush covered her cheeks, as murmurs of disapproval grew around her. "It doesn't matter," Daniel interjected, taking his wife's hand. "We're here now." After awkward greetings and forced conversations, when the last guests were beginning to say goodbye, Doña Carmen approached the couple with an elegant envelope in her hand. "Mariana, dear," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "As the baby's mother and representative of your family, it's only right that you take care of this." She opened the envelope and placed a bill for 120,000 pesos in front of Mariana. "What is this?" Mariana asked, feeling the air leave her lungs. "The baby shower bill, of course. You didn't think we were going to pay for your child, did you?" Daniel tried to intervene, but Doña Carmen stopped him. "No, son. Your wife must learn what it costs to belong to this family. If she can't afford a simple party for her baby, perhaps she should reconsider whether she is ready to raise him." That was when something broke inside Mariana. All the humiliation, the insinuations, the contempt accumulated over the years emerged like boiling lava. "I won't pay a single peso for a party I didn't ask for, that was organized behind my back, and to which I was intentionally made to arrive late," she said in a voice so firm that it surprised everyone present, including herself. "This wasn't a baby shower. It was a trap to humiliate me publicly." Doña Carmen's face contorted as if she had been slapped. "Insolent! How dare you!" And then, in a second that would forever change the course of their lives, Doña Carmen picked up the heavy menu board resting on the table and smashed it over Mariana's head. The world went blurry. Mariana felt the impact, the sharp pain, the wetness of blood. As she fell, her only thought was for her baby. Around her, chaos broke out. "Mariana!" Daniel's heart-wrenching cry echoed throughout the restaurant as he ran toward his wife. "Call an ambulance!" Daniel took Mariana in his arms, pressing his handkerchief against the wound. His eyes, usually warm and gentle, changed as he looked at his mother. "What have you done?" he shouted with a fury he had never shown before. "She's my wife. She's pregnant with your grandchild." Doña Carmen, suddenly aware of the gravity of her action, took a step back. The deathly silence was broken by the voice of a waiter. "I've already called emergency services and the police." At that moment, as sirens began to wail in the distance, Mariana realized that nothing would ever be the same again. With her head resting on Daniel's chest and his protective hand on her belly, she closed her eyes as a single tear rolled down her cheek. What no one could have imagined was that this violent blow, far from being the end of their story, would be just the beginning of a chain of revelations that would forever change the fate of everyone present. The ambulance lights flashed intermittently on Mariana's pale face as the paramedics rushed her to the Angeles Hospital in California. Daniel traveled by her side, holding her hand tightly, his eyes red from holding back tears. "Everything will be fine, my love. Our baby will be fine." He repeated it like a mantra, more to convince himself than her. At the same time, in the parking lot of Hacienda Dorada, Doña Carmen was struggling with two police officers who were trying to handcuff her. "Let me go immediately. Do you know who I am? I am Carmen Montero de Alarcón. My family built half of California," she shouted, as Paula tried to intervene by showing the officers her business cards. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for assaulting a pregnant woman," one of the officers replied firmly. "We have more than 20 witnesses to the incident." "It was an accident. She provoked me," Carmen insisted as they put her in the patrol car. At the hospital, the doctors examined Mariana with concerned expressions. The wound on her head had required 7 stitches, but what worried them most was the condition of the baby. "We need to perform a complete fetal monitoring," Dr. Ramirez explained to Daniel, who was waiting anxiously in the hallway. "Your wife experienced significant trauma, and there is a risk of premature placental abruption." Daniel nodded mechanically, unable to fully process what was happening. In a matter of hours, his perfectly structured life had turned into a nightmare. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from Paola, from friends who had been at the event, even from his father, Don Alberto, who rarely communicated with him directly. He finally answered his father. What the hell happened, Daniel? Don Alberto's deep voice echoed through the phone. Your mother is at the police station, and they say she assaulted your wife. That's exactly what happened, Dad, Daniel replied, in a tone that surprised even his own father with its coldness. Mom hit Mariana over the head with a menu board because she refused to pay 120,000 pesos for a baby shower she didn't even ask for. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. How is Mariana? And the baby? Don Alberto finally asked in a tone Daniel had never heard before. He almost sounded concerned. I don't know yet. They're running tests on her, he replied, feeling tears welling up in his eyes again. Dad, if anything happens to them, don't think about that now. His father interrupted him. Take care of your family. I'll take care of the rest. That phrase, your family, echoed in Daniel's mind. For the first time, he clearly understood that his family was no longer his parents and his sister. His family was Mariana, and that baby they had both dreamed of for so long. Meanwhile, in an interrogation room at the police station, Doña Carmen maintained her haughty stance in front of Detective Jimenez. It was all a misunderstanding, she insisted. I organized a beautiful party to celebrate the arrival of my grandson, and she humiliated me in front of all our friends. I lost my temper for a moment. That's all, Mrs. Montero, replied the detective with studied calm. We have statements from 15 people who claim that you tried to force your daughter-in-law to pay an exorbitant bill for an event you organized, and when she refused, you violently assaulted her. Exaggerations, I barely touched her. 7 stitches is hardly touching her, ma'am, Jimenez replied, sliding the photographs taken by the police at the restaurant toward her. Mariana's blood on the white marble was disturbingly visible. The detective continued. In addition, we have received disturbing information from the restaurant. Carmen's face paled slightly. The manager of Hacienda Dorada has provided us with copies of his communications with you. It appears that you deliberately planned for your daughter-in-law to arrive late by changing the time of the event just for her. That's ridiculous, Carmen stammered, but her voice had lost its firmness. We also have evidence that you specifically requested that the invoice be issued in the name of Mariana Lopez and not in your name as the organizer of the event. All of this suggests premeditation, Mrs. Montero. At that moment, the door opened and Paula entered, accompanied by a man in a suit. My client will not answer any more questions, the lawyer announced. He requested her immediate release on bail. Detective Jimenez smiled slightly. I'm afraid that won't be possible. Your client is being charged with aggravated assault against a pregnant woman with possible risk to the fetus. That's a serious crime in San Diego County. Back at the hospital, after hours of agonizing waiting, Dr. Ramirez approached Daniel with a cautious smile. The baby is stable, she announced, causing Daniel to exhale the breath he didn't know he was holding. The fetal monitor shows a normal heart rate, and there are no signs of placental abruption. However, we want to keep Mariana under observation for 48 hours. Can I see her? Daniel asked, discreetly wiping away a tear. The doctor nodded and led him to the room where Mariana, with a bandage on her head and connected to monitors, was staring out the window with a vacant expression. When she saw Daniel enter, her eyes lit up briefly. Our little Emiliano is a fighter, she whispered, bringing her hands to her belly. Daniel sat down next to the bed and took her hands. You both are, he replied, kissing her fingers gently. Mariana, I'm so sorry. I never thought my mother would go this far. Mariana was silent for a few moments. What's going to happen now? She finally asked. Now we're going to focus on you recovering and our baby being born healthy, he replied firmly. As for the rest, my mother will have to face the consequences of her actions. At that precise moment, his phone vibrated. It was a message from Don Alberto. I need to talk to you urgently. I've found something you need to see. The next day, while Mariana rested under medical supervision, Daniel met with his father in the family business office. Don Alberto, a 65-year-old man whose face showed the weight of decades of hard work, seemed to have aged 10 years in a single night. Sit down, son, he said, pointing to the chair in front of his imposing mahogany desk. What I'm about to show you will change many things. Don Alberto slid a folder full of documents toward him. When I found out what had happened, I decided to review the company's accounts. Your mother has always been in charge of the accounting, and I trusted her blindly. Daniel began to review the papers, and as he turned the pages, his expression changed from bewilderment to disbelief. "What is all this?" he asked, although he was beginning to understand. "Fraud," Don Alberto replied curtly. "Your mother and sister have been embezzling company funds for years. Fictitious purchases, forged invoices, ghost properties, millions of pesos." Daniel dropped the documents on the desk. "Why are you showing me this now?" Don Alberto sighed deeply. "Because I've been a coward for too long. Because I saw how they treated Mariana and never said anything. Because yesterday, your mother crossed a line that cannot be erased." He paused and looked directly into his son's eyes. "And because you need all the ammunition you can get if you want to truly protect your family." In that moment, Daniel understood that the attack on Mariana had been just the tip of the iceberg, a pattern of manipulation, lies, and abuse that extended far beyond anything he had ever imagined. "What are you going to do with this information?" he asked his father. Don Alberto stood up and walked over to the window, gazing out at the city he had helped build. "The right thing, even if it's too late. I've already contacted our corporate lawyer. We'll file a formal complaint." He turned to Daniel. "I just want to know if you're with me on this." Daniel thought of Mariana, of the wound on her head, of the baby she almost lost. He thought of years of subtle contempt, hurtful comments, constant manipulation. "I'm with you," he replied with determination. What neither of them knew was that at that very moment, from a cell at the police station, Doña Carmen was making a call that would set in motion a desperate plan to prevent her empire from collapsing. "Paula, listen to me carefully," she whispered into the phone. "Go to the safe in my office. There are documents we must destroy immediately. And then bring me those photos." Yes, those. The time has come to show Daniel who the woman he married really is. In the hospital, oblivious to the storms approaching, Mariana finally slept with a protective hand on her belly, unaware that she would soon have to face the most difficult phase of her battle against the Montero family. A ray of sunlight filtered through the hospital blinds, drawing golden lines on the bed where Mariana had spent the last 3 days. The doctor had just discharged her, but not before warning her that she must remain on complete bed rest for the next few weeks. 7 months pregnant, and with her recent trauma, any complications could bring on premature labor. "Ready to go home?" Daniel asked as he entered the room with a small suitcase of clean clothes. Mariana nodded silently. Something had changed in her since the incident. It was no longer just the physical pain or fear for her baby. It was a new determination, a strength she didn't know she possessed. "Daniel," she said, as he helped her put on a loose-fitting maternity blouse, "I don't want to go back home." He stopped, looking at her confused. "What do you mean? Where do you want to go then?" "I can't go back to a house 20 minutes away from your mother. Not after this." Mariana pointed to the bandage that still partially covered her head. "I need to feel safe for myself and for Emiliano." Daniel sat down next to her on the bed, taking her hands in his. "Listen to me. My mother is in custody, and even if she gets out on bail, she has a restraining order. She can't come near you. And then, what will happen when the baby is born? Do you think she'll stop?" Mariana's voice trembled, not with fear, but with indignation. "For 3 years I have endured her contempt, her hurtful comments, her manipulations. I thought I could endure it for you, for us. But now we have a child on the way, and I refuse to raise Emiliano in a toxic environment." Daniel was silent for a moment, knowing she was right. Finally, he nodded. "Okay, we can stay in a hotel for now. We'll find a new place far away from her. I promise." "Really?" Mariana's eyes lit up for the first time in days. "Really," he confirmed. "My father has offered me one of the apartments we have downtown, near Agua Azul Park. It's quiet, safe, and has all the amenities for when the baby is born." What Daniel didn't tell her at the time was the real reason behind Don Alberto's generosity. Neither the documents he had discovered, nor the impending legal storm looming over the Monteros. He wanted to protect her, at least until she had recovered more. Meanwhile, in an elegant visiting room at the municipal jail, Doña Carmen, looking considerably less imposing without her usual perfect makeup and jewelry, received her lawyer, Mr. Mendez. When will they get me out of this hellhole? She demanded to know as soon as the lawyer sat down across from her. We're working on it, Mrs. Montero, Mendez replied with a grave expression. But I must inform you that the situation has become considerably more complicated. What do you mean? Your husband has filed a formal complaint against you and your daughter for corporate fraud. He has evidence, Mrs. Montero. Solid evidence. Carmen's face lost all color. Alberto has reported me, the mother of his children. That's right. I'm afraid this completely changes our strategy. We're no longer talking about just one charge of assault, but a possible case of large-scale corporate corruption. Carmen brought a trembling hand to her chest. That coward. After everything I've done for him, for that company, Mrs. Montero, the lawyer interrupted, leaning toward her. I need you to be completely honest with me. Are these accusations true? Have you been embezzling company funds? Carmen remained silent, her mind working at full speed. Finally, a bitter smile appeared on her lips. Paola, did she give you the documents I asked for? Yes, but I don't understand what they have to do with that woman. Carmen interrupted. That Mariana is not who everyone thinks she is. I have proof that she was involved in a scandal at her previous job. She was fired for embezzling funds intended for a school trip. The lawyer examined the photographs and documents with skepticism. This looks doctored, ma'am. Of course not. That little minx has fooled everyone, especially my son. I need you to leak this information to the press so that everyone knows who the real victim in this story is. Mendez sighed deeply. Ms. Montero, with all due respect, this will not help your case. In fact, it could be interpreted as an attempt at defamation and retaliation against the victim of your assault. I don't care. I want you to do it now. The lawyer stood up, gathering his documents. I'll find a way to get you out on bail. As for the rest, I would recommend that you reconsider your position. This war you're trying to start will only make your situation worse. But Carmen Montero had never known how to give up, and she wasn't about to start now. 3 days later, Mariana and Daniel had moved into the apartment near Agua Azul Park. It was a bright and spacious place, with a room they were already preparing for the baby. For the first time in a long time, Mariana felt safe. That morning, while Daniel was making breakfast, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. When she opened the door, she came face to face with Paola. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. How did you know where we were? Dad told me, she replied, looking unusually disheveled, with dark circles under her eyes. I need to talk to you, Daniel. It's important. He hesitated for a moment, but finally stepped aside to let her in. No! Mariana's voice sounded firm from the hallway. I don't want her in our house. Paola looked at her, and for a moment, something resembling remorse crossed her face. Mariana, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but this concerns you too, both of us. What is it about? Daniel asked without inviting her past the foyer. Paola took an envelope out of her purse. Mom plans to destroy you. Mom has fabricated false documents about you, claiming you stole money from your previous job. She's going to leak them to the press today. Mariana turned pale. What? That's completely false. I know, Paola admitted, to both their surprise. I helped her create the documents, but I can't go on with this. She held out the envelope to them. Here are the manipulated originals. You'll need them to defend yourselves. Daniel took the envelope cautiously, as if it contained something toxic. Why are you doing this? Why are you helping us now? Paola looked away, visibly uncomfortable. The police raided my apartment yesterday. They took my computer, my files, everything. The fraud investigation is serious. She paused, taking a deep breath. Mom and I have done terrible things. I know, but the baby shower, that was too far. I never thought she would physically attack you. She turned to Mariana, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just want to do something right, for once. A heavy silence filled the hallway. Finally, Mariana took a step forward. Thanks for the warning, she said dryly. But this doesn't change anything. Your mother almost killed my son, and you were complicit in every humiliation I suffered over the years. Paola nodded, accepting the blow. I know. Just take care of yourself, Mariana. My mother won't stop. She doesn't know how. After Paola left, Daniel and Mariana examined the forged documents. They were elaborate, believable to anyone who didn't know the truth. "We have to call a lawyer," Daniel said, clenching his fists in frustration. "This is pure defamation, and we also have to talk to my former principal," Mariana added. She can confirm that there was never any incident like the one described in these papers. That same afternoon, as they were getting ready to meet with the lawyer Don Alberto had recommended, Daniel's phone rang. It was his father, and his voice sounded alarmed. "Son, they're at home. I need you to turn on the TV right now." Channel 5. Daniel obeyed, and what they saw left them frozen. On a local gossip show, a presenter with a sensationalist expression was showing the same documents that Paula had warned them about hours earlier. Exclusive: the Montero's assaulted daughter-in-law has a dark past. Confidential sources have revealed to us that Mariana Lopez, who recently accused renowned businesswoman Carmen Montero of assault, was fired from her previous job for embezzling school funds. Mariana slumped onto the sofa, feeling as if she couldn't breathe. It can't be. She really did it. Daniel furiously turned off the TV. "We're going to sue them all. The channel, the journalists, and, of course, my mother." The phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number. Daniel reluctantly answered. "Mr. Montero, this is Detective Jimenez. I need you and your wife to come to the police station immediately. We have new information about your case that you need to know." Daniel's expression changed as he listened. "Are you sure about that?" "I understand. We'll be there in 30 minutes. When he hung up, he looked at Mariana with a mixture of amazement and hope. The police had found something in the restaurant's records, something that proved that it had all been planned from the beginning. Meanwhile, in a solitary cell, Doña Carmen smiled contentedly as a guard informed her that her lawyer had finally secured her bail. In a few hours, she would be free. What she didn't know was that her fleeting triumph would be the prelude to her greatest downfall, a downfall that would drag with it years of secrets, lies, and an empire built on quicksand. Quick check-in. Where are you listening from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments. Before continuing, we want to know more about you. Where are you listening from? Leave us a comment with the name of your city or country. We'd love to know how far our stories are reaching. The California police station was bustling with activity when Daniel and Mariana arrived that afternoon. Detective Jimenez, a man in his 50s with a stern expression but kind eyes, greeted them personally and led them to a meeting room away from the general hustle and bustle. "Thank you for coming so quickly," he said, pointing to the chairs. "I know it hasn't been easy for you, especially with everything that's been circulating in the media." Mariana sat down with difficulty, one hand resting on her bulging belly. "Have you seen the news?" she asked in a tense voice. "Of course," Jimenez nodded, "and that's precisely why I called you. But first, let me show you what we've found." The detective placed a thick folder and a USB drive on the table. "This," he said, pointing to the memory stick, "is a copy of all the security recordings from La Hacienda Dorada restaurant for the last 3 months. And this," he pointed to the folder, "are the records of communications between Mrs. Carmen Montero and the manager of the restaurant." Daniel leaned forward, intrigued. "What do recordings from 3 months ago have to do with what happened at the baby shower?" "Everything," Jimenez replied, opening the folder. "Your mother didn't plan this overnight, Mr. Montero. It was a trap meticulously orchestrated over weeks. If this setup already has you furious on Mariana's behalf, hit like, so I know you want more stories like this." The detective pulled out several printed emails. 3 months ago, your mother first contacted the restaurant. In this email, you can see that she specifically requests that any communication about the reservation be kept confidential, even from you. Mariana took one of the documents. It says here that she needs 2 invoices, one real for the restaurant and another modified to show the day of the event. "Exactly," Jimenez confirmed. "The original invoice was for 52,000 pesos. The one she showed you was altered to reflect 120,000. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, visibly upset. Why would she do something like that? It doesn't make sense. "Keep reading," the detective said. As they reviewed the documents, a disturbing picture began to form. Messages where Carmen specifically instructed on the decor. exuberant but in bad taste. I want it to look more expensive than it is on the menu. Include the most expensive dishes. I want it to be impossible for someone with a teacher's salary to afford. Regarding the communication of the schedule change, make sure that only Mariana receives the incorrect information. This is sickening, Mariana muttered, feeling nauseous for reasons unrelated to her pregnancy. There's more, Jimenez continued, connecting the USB to a laptop. Security cameras captured several meetings between her mother, her sister, and the restaurant manager. In this one, 3 days before the event, you can clearly see them rehearsing what will happen. The recording showed Carmen, Paula, and a man in a suit arguing animatedly at a secluded table. Carmen gestured, pointing to different parts of the restaurant, while the man nodded nervously. That's Roberto Mendez, the manager, Jimenez explained. He has confessed everything in exchange for immunity. According to his testimony, Mrs. Montero paid him an extra 20,000 pesos to follow her instructions to the letter. Why would anyone agree to participate in something like that? Mariana asked incredulously. Fear, Jimenez replied simply. The Monteros are very influential in California. According to Mendez, Doña Carmen threatened to ruin the restaurant if he didn't cooperate. Daniel closed his eyes, overwhelmed by shame and anger. All this time, I thought I knew my mother. There's something else you should know, added the detective with a serious expression. Mr. Mendez also stated that this is not the first time his mother and sister have organized this type of trap. Apparently, it is a tactic they have used before to discredit people they considered inconvenient. Mariana and Daniel exchanged a look of astonishment. Other people? Who? She asked. We are investigating that, Jimenez replied. But we have already identified at least 3 women. Her husband's ex-girlfriend, a minority partner in the company who sold her shares at a bargain price 2 years ago, and a former employee who filed a lawsuit for workplace harassment that was mysteriously withdrawn. A heavy silence fell over the room. Finally, Daniel spoke in a broken voice. Detective, what will happen now? His mother was released on bail an hour ago, Jimenez reported. But with this new evidence, we are expanding the charges to conspiracy, document fraud, and extortion. As for your sister, we have already issued an arrest warrant. What about the accusations against me, the ones circulating in the media? Mariana asked. Don't worry about that, the detective replied, with a slight smile. We have statements from your former employers confirming that they are false. In addition, we have traced the source of the leak to the media. It came directly from your sister-in-law's phone. As they left the police station, a light rain had begun to fall on California. Daniel put his arm around Mariana's shoulders, instinctively protecting her. How are you feeling? He asked as they waited for a taxi. Mariana took a deep breath, smelling the wet earth, strangely liberated, as if she could finally see clearly what had been going on all these years. I'm so sorry, he whispered, kissing her forehead just below the bandage that still covered her wound. I should have protected you better. It's not your fault, Daniel, she replied, squeezing his hand. They manipulated you as much as they tried to manipulate me. Daniel's phone vibrated with a message. It was from Don Alberto. Can we talk? I'm at the cafe across from the police station. As they crossed the street, they saw the lonely figure of Don Alberto sitting by the window, watching the rainfall. At 65, he seemed to have aged a decade in just a few days. His face, usually proud and imperturbable, now showed the marks of pain and disappointment. Thank you for coming, he said, when they sat down in front of him. Mariana, how are you? She was surprised by the genuine concern in his voice. For 3 years, Don Alberto had given her little more than polite greetings and superficial comments. Better, thank you, she replied cautiously. The man nodded, fixing his gaze on the cup of coffee he held in his hands. The police have shown me the evidence. Everything Carmen has done, what she has been doing for years. Dad, Daniel began, but Don Alberto raised a hand to stop him. No, let me speak. I need to say this. He turned to Mariana. I owe you an apology, Mariana, not only for what has happened now, but for every moment I remained silent, while my wife and daughter treated you with contempt. Don Alberto, you are not responsible for what they did, Mariana replied. surprised by the sincerity she sensed in him. "I am by omission," he said firmly. "I saw what was happening and chose not to see. I told myself it was women's stuff that would work itself out over time." A bitter smile crossed his face. What a cowardly excuse, right? Daniel had never seen his father like this, vulnerable and genuinely remorseful. "What are you going to do now?" he asked. "I filed for divorce this morning," Don Alberto replied, "and I have temporarily handed over control of the company to the board of directors until this whole fraud issue is cleared up." He looked directly at his son. "Daniel, I want you to know that I have protected your share. Whatever happens to the company, you and your family will be financially secure." "I don't care about the money, Dad," Daniel replied. "I just want Mariana and my son to be safe." Don Alberto nodded understandingly. "They will be. I will personally make sure of that." He turned back to Mariana. "There's something else. I know I have no right to ask this of you after everything you've been through, but would you allow me to meet my grandson when he's born?" Mariana felt tears welling up in her eyes, surprised by the emotion she detected in the voice of this man who was always so distant. She exchanged a glance with Daniel, who nodded slightly. "Of course," she replied softly. "Emiliano deserves to meet his grandfather." Don Alberto's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Thank you," he murmured. As they were about to leave, Daniel's phone rang insistently. It was Paola. "Daniel, listen to me." Her voice sounded frantic. "Mom has gone crazy. She knows the police have all the evidence and has come to my apartment. She's tearing everything apart, looking for some documents. She says she's going to destroy us all before she goes down." "Where are you now?" Daniel asked, alarmed. "I'm locked in the bathroom, but she's banging on the door. Please call the police. I think she has a gun, Daniel. I saw it in her bag." The call was abruptly cut off. Daniel looked at his father and Mariana in horror. "We have to call the police now." While Don Alberto urgently contacted Detective Jimenez, Daniel helped Mariana into his father's car. "I'll take you to the apartment. You'll be safer there, you know?" "No," she protested, clutching his arm. "I'm not leaving you now. We're going together." At that moment, Daniel's phone received a text message. He opened it, and his face visibly paled. "What's wrong?" Mariana asked, feeling a chill run down her spine. Daniel showed her the screen. It was a message from an unknown number. "Tell your father to enjoy his last moments of peace. No one destroys the Monteros and gets away with it." Before they could react, the phone rang again. This time it was Detective Jimenez. "Mr. Montero, we have a situation. Your mother has escaped police surveillance. We sent patrols to your sister's apartment, but she wasn't there. Do you have any idea where she might be?" A cold terror settled in Daniel's chest as he protectively embraced Mariana. "I think she's coming for us, Detective, and she'll stop at nothing." What no one could have imagined was that Carmen Montero, in her desperation, had already devised a plan that would endanger not only the lives of Mariana and her baby, but the very future of the entire Montero family. Night fell over California like a heavy, damp blanket. The storm that had begun as a light drizzle had intensified, turning into a violent downpour that lashed the deserted streets. In the apartment near Agua Azul Park, the lights remained off as a precaution, while 3 police officers discreetly monitored the perimeter of the building. Daniel watched the city from the bedroom window, alert to any suspicious movement. After the threat they had received, Detective Jimenez had assigned immediate police protection for them, but unease lingered like a shadow. "Do you think she'll come here?" Mariana asked from the bed, where she was trying unsuccessfully to fall asleep. Daniel turned to her, trying to project a calmness that was far from what he was feeling. "I don't know, but we're safe. There are police downstairs and the doors are locked." Mariana nodded, although they both knew that Carmen Montero was capable of finding cracks in any security system. Her determination was as fierce as her hatred, a combination that made her an unpredictable danger. Daniel's phone vibrated on the nightstand. It was a message from his father. "I can't reach the police. Someone has broken into my house. I think it's her. Come quickly. What's going on?" asked Mariana, noticing Daniel's face turn pale. "It's my father. He thinks my mother is at his house." Daniel quickly dialed Detective Jimenez's number, but only got his voicemail. "Whatever. He's not answering." "Daniel, you can't go there." Mariana struggled to her feet, her 7-month pregnancy limiting her movements. It's a trap. It has to be. He knew it. He knew it was exactly what his mother was hoping for. To lure him out of the secure apartment, to separate him from Mariana. But he also knew he couldn't abandon his father if he was really in danger. "I'll call the patrol downstairs," he finally decided. "Let them go check it out." He hurried downstairs and explained the situation to the officers. 2 of them left immediately for Don Alberto's residence, while the 3rd remained on guard at the building. Returning to the apartment, Daniel found Mariana standing in the hallway, one hand resting on the wall, and the other pressing her belly with a pained expression. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" He ran to her, alarmed. I think these are contractions," she replied, breathing heavily. "They started a few minutes ago. I thought they were false, but they're getting stronger. Come on, you're only 7 months along." Panic began to form in Daniel's chest. "We have to go to the hospital." Now, as he helped Mariana change her clothes and packed a small suitcase with the essentials, his mind was working frantically. The stress, the blow to the head, the constant tension, it had all contributed to triggering premature labor. "I'll call Dr. Ramirez," he said, trying to remain calm for Mariana's sake. "And I'll let the officer downstairs know that we need to leave, urgently." However, when they went down to the building's lobby, there was no sign of the police officer who was supposed to be on guard. Daniel looked around, confused and alarmed. "Where is he?" he muttered, as he helped Mariana sit down in one of the lobby chairs. "Wait here. I'll check outside." "Don't leave me alone," she pleaded, clutching his hand tightly. "I have a bad feeling about this." At that moment, Daniel's phone rang. It was one of the officers he had sent to his father's house. "Mr. Montero, we have arrived at your father's residence. There are no signs of intrusion or of your mother. Your father is perfectly fine and surprised by our visit. He says he hasn't sent any messages." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. It was a trap, he whispered, realizing too late. And if you want to see how this escalates from a trap to a full collapse, subscribe now so you don't miss the next chapter. He turned to Mariana, but before he could speak, the front door of the building burst open. Carmen Montero rushed in, soaked by the rain, her makeup running in black streaks down her face. In one hand, she held what appeared to be a small gun. "How touching," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. The little family reunited. Daniel instinctively placed himself in front of Mariana. "Mom, put that down. Don't make things worse." "Make them worse?" Carmen laughed humorlessly. "Do you think they can get any worse? My son has betrayed me. My husband has reported me. My company is under investigation. And all because of this." She pointed the gun at Mariana. "This opportunist who came into our lives." "Mrs. Montero," Mariana intervened, surprisingly calm despite the pain of the contractions. "I'm in labor. Your grandson is about to be born. Please don't do this." For a moment, something seemed to flicker in Carmen's eyes, a glimmer of doubt, perhaps even humanity, but it dissipated as quickly as it had appeared. "My grandson, that baby will never be a true Montero, not while you are his mother." Daniel took a step toward her, trying to reason with her. "Mom, you're sick. You need help. Let us take you somewhere where they can help you." "Sick," she replied bitterly. "What I am is tired. Tired of fighting alone to maintain the prestige of this family. Your father was always weak, and you are just like him." "You're wrong," Daniel replied firmly. "True strength does not lie in manipulating and hurting others. It lies in loving and protecting those you care about." Carmen moved the gun nervously. "How poetic. Your little wife has completely softened you." "No, Mom. Mariana has helped me see who I really am, who I want to be." A noise from the entrance momentarily distracted Carmen. It was the police officer who was supposed to be on guard, returning from what had apparently been a false alarm at the perimeter. Seeing the scene, he quickly drew his weapon. "Police, drop your weapon, ma'am." It all happened in a matter of seconds. Carmen, cornered, spun around abruptly. Daniel took the opportunity to lunge at her, trying to disarm her. A shot rang out, then another. The officer fell to the ground, wounded in the leg. Daniel and his mother struggled for control of the gun. "Daniel." Mariana's heart-wrenching scream echoed through the hallway as another contraction, stronger than the previous ones, doubled her over in pain. Amid the chaos, no one noticed the arrival of Don Alberto, who had received the call from the police and had rushed over immediately, worried about his son. The old man rushed toward his wife and son, trying to separate them. "Carmen, stop! He's your son, for God's sake!" The distraction was enough for Daniel to snatch the gun from his mother. Carmen, beside herself, violently pushed Don Alberto, who lost his balance and fell heavily to the floor, hitting his head on the edge of a marble table. "Dad!" Daniel shouted, running toward him. Carmen, seeing her chance, headed toward Mariana, who was in the throes of labor, unable to move. But before she could reach her, the door opened again, and Paula appeared, followed by Detective Jimenez and several officers. "Mom, no!" Paula shouted, lunging toward her mother and intercepting her before she reached Mariana. Both women fell to the floor as the police quickly subdued Carmen, who screamed and struggled like a cornered animal. "Traitor! You're a hunter! You should be on my side!" she yelled at her daughter as they handcuffed her. Paula, tears streaming down her cheeks, knelt in front of her. "That's what I'm doing, Mom. Saving you from yourself." As Carmen was escorted out of the building, Daniel divided his attention between his unconscious father and Mariana, who clearly needed urgent medical attention. "The ambulance is on its way," Jimenez announced, kneeling next to Don Alberto to check his vital signs. "He's breathing, but he needs immediate attention." Paola approached Mariana, offering her physical support. "Hang in there a little longer. You'll be at the hospital soon." Mariana, between contractions, looked at the woman who had so often participated in her humiliation. "Why?" she asked simply. Paola looked down, ashamed, "Because all my life I have been an accomplice to her madness." It was time to break the cycle. The next few hours passed in a blur of ambulance lights, hospital corridors, and urgent medical voices. Don Alberto was taken to intensive care with severe head trauma. Mariana was admitted to the maternity ward, where doctors tried to stop the premature birth. Daniel moved between the two areas of the hospital like a ghost, torn between concern for his father and fear for his wife and unborn child. It was Paola who surprisingly became his support during those dark hours. The woman who had always shown disdain for Mariana now waited patiently in the room, offering coffee, updates on Don Alberto's condition, and most importantly, a silent but constant presence. After midnight, Dr. Ramirez came out to talk to Daniel. "We haven't been able to stop the labor," she reported with a grave expression. "The baby is on the way, and although it's premature, its vital signs are stable. Mariana is being very strong." "Can I be with her?" Daniel asked, exhausted but determined. "Of course they're waiting for you." In the delivery room, Mariana was fighting bravely through increasingly frequent contractions. When she saw Daniel enter, her face lit up briefly. "How is your father?" she asked, despite her own pain. "Stable but critical," he replied, taking her hand. "But don't think about that now. Focus on bringing our child into the world." The next few minutes were intense. Mariana pushed with a strength Daniel didn't know she possessed, clinging to his hand like a lifeline. And then, amid the sound of machines and the doctor's instructions, the sharp, miraculous cry of a new life was heard. "It's a boy," announced the doctor, holding tiny little Emiliano, who had surprisingly strong lungs. "Is he okay?" asked Mariana, exhausted but anxious. "He'll need to be in the incubator for a while, but his signs are good. He's a fighter like his mother." Daniel kissed Mariana's sweaty forehead, tears streaming freely down his face. "You did it." They both did. As the doctors took little Emiliano away for his first care, Daniel and Mariana shared a moment of peace amid the storm that had been their lives for the past few weeks. "I love you," he whispered against her hair. "You and our son are all that matters." "I love you too," she replied, closing her eyes, exhausted, but finally at peace. Outside the room, in the hospital hallway, Paola waited nervously. When Daniel came out to tell her about the birth, she smiled genuinely for the first time in what seemed like years. "Congratulations," she said simply. "You'll be a wonderful father." Daniel looked at her with a mixture of conflicting emotions. "Thank you for being here, Paola, for what you did today." She shook her head. "Don't thank me. I'm just trying to repair a small part of the damage I've caused." "Do you know anything about Mom?" Daniel finally asked. She's in police custody in the psychiatric wing of the civil hospital. The doctors believe she has suffered a nervous breakdown. Paola paused, choosing her words carefully. The lawyers are already saying she will probably plead insanity at the trial. Daniel nodded, feeling a strange mixture of relief and sadness. His mother had never been an easy person to love, but she was still his mother. Part of him would always hope that one day she might find peace. "I think you should go see Dad," Paola suggested gently. "The doctors say his condition is delicate but stable. Could he hear you?" Daniel looked toward the room where Mariana was resting. "I don't want to leave her alone." "I'll stay with her," Paola offered, surprising him. Seeing his skeptical look, she added, "I promise, Daniel. I'll take care of her as if she were my sister." With some reluctance, Daniel agreed and headed for the intensive care unit. There, Don Alberto lay connected to several machines, his pale face contrasting with the bruises that were beginning to form. Daniel sat down next to the bed and took his father's cold hand. "Hello, Dad," he whispered. "I just became a father. Your grandson has been born. He's small but strong. His name is Emiliano, after your father." An almost imperceptible movement in Don Alberto's fingers indicated that he could somehow hear him. "We need you, Dad," Daniel continued, his voice breaking. "Emiliano needs his grandfather. I need you." In Mariana's room, Paola had sat down next to the bed, watching silently as the young mother slept, exhausted after giving birth. When a nurse entered with little Emiliano, now stabilized but still in a portable incubator for observation, Paola got up to see him. "He's beautiful," she murmured, almost to herself. Mariana, waking up at the sound of movement, looked in surprise at her sister-in-law standing next to her son's incubator. "Daniel?" she asked, still dazed. "He's with your father-in-law," Paola replied softly. "He'll be back soon." Mariana instinctively tried to sit up, protective. Paola noticed her concern and took a step back. "I won't hurt him," she said softly. "Not him or you. Ever again." Something in her tone, in the raw vulnerability of her words, made Mariana really look at her for the first time, not as Daniel's arrogant sister, but as a woman trapped in a toxic cycle who had finally found the courage to break it. "Do you want to hold him?" Mariana asked, surprising herself. Paola's eyes widened in amazement. "Would you let me?" With the nurse's help, little Emiliano was briefly taken out of the incubator and placed in his aunt's trembling arms. Paola looked at him as if she were holding the most delicate and precious object in the world. "Welcome, Emiliano," she whispered, as a single tear rolled down her cheek. "Your life will be different, I promise." At that moment, as a new day dawned over California, something else was born in that hospital room, the possibility of healing, of rebuilding, of starting over. Outside, in a guarded cell in the psychiatric ward, Carmen Montero stared blankly out the window, her eyes empty of emotion. In her hands, she compulsively crumpled a piece of paper on which she had written a single name over and over again: Mariana. The battle may have been over, but for Carmen, the war was just beginning. 2 years had passed since that stormy night when Emiliano came into the world, small but a fighter like his parents. Mariana's life had changed completely, transforming into something she could never have imagined during those dark days of humiliation and family tensions. The warm sun filtered through the windows of the apartment they now called home, a bright and cozy space in a quiet residential neighborhood, far from the opulent area where the Monteros lived. In the garden, Emiliano, now a boy with rosy cheeks and lively eyes identical to Daniel's, chased butterflies amid crystal-clear laughter. "Look, Mom! I caught one!" he shouted enthusiastically, even though the butterfly had already escaped from his little hands. Mariana smiled from the terrace, where she was setting the table for Sunday lunch. "You're very quick, my love," she replied, keeping to herself the tenderness that his innocence provoked in her. The doorbell rang punctually at 2 p.m. Daniel, who had been reviewing some plans in his study, hurried to open the door. "Dad, we thought you'd be home later," he greeted Don Alberto with a hug. Despite the cane that now accompanied him permanently, Don Alberto maintained a dignified bearing at 67 years of age. "I would never miss a minute with my grandson," replied the old man, whose eyes lit up when he saw Emiliano running toward him shouting, "Grandpa!" with open arms. Don Alberto bent down with effort to receive the little boy's hug. The head trauma he had suffered that night had left him with permanent sequelae, difficulty walking, occasional memory problems, and a sensitivity to light that forced him to always wear dark glasses. But it had also unexpectedly softened something inside him, as if the blow had knocked down invisible walls that prevented him from showing affection. "I brought you something," he said to Emiliano, pulling a small toy car out of his pocket. "It's like the one your dad had when he was a kid." The little boy received the gift with eyes shining with excitement. "Thank you, Grandpa. Let's play." As Emiliano dragged his grandfather into the garden, Mariana and Daniel exchanged a knowing glance. Who would have imagined years ago that Don Alberto Montero would become such a devoted grandfather, so present in his grandson's life? "Have you heard anything from Paola?" Mariana asked as she finished pouring the lemonade. Daniel nodded. "She called this morning. Her flight from Mexico City arrives at 5. She says she has important news." Paola had been another of the big changes in their lives. After the trial, where she testified against her own mother, she had moved to the capital to start over. She had sold her shares in the family business and, surprisingly, had begun studying psychology. "I would like to help people trapped in toxic relationships like I was," she had explained the last time they saw her 6 months ago. The transformation in her had been as profound as it was unexpected. Lunch passed with laughter and light conversation. Don Alberto told anecdotes from when Daniel was little, stories he had never shared before, and that now flowed from him like a long, contained river. Emiliano listened to him with fascination, especially when he mentioned his father's mischief. "Did he really fall out of a tree?" he asked incredulously, and broke his arm. Don Alberto confirmed with a nostalgic smile, but 2 weeks later, he was already trying to climb again. After dessert, while Daniel washed the dishes and Emiliano took his nap, Mariana sat down next to Don Alberto on the terrace. A comfortable silence settled between them, something unthinkable in the early years of their acquaintance. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" the old man finally asked. Mariana sighed deeply. Tomorrow would be her first visit to Carmen in prison after 2 years of rejecting her constant requests to meet. "Yes," she admitted sincerely. "There are days when I still dream about her hitting me, about the blood, the fear." Instinctively, she brought her hand to the small scar that still lingered near her right cheek, a permanent reminder of that night. "You don't have to go if you don't want to," Don Alberto reminded her. "No one would judge you for it." "I know," she replied, "but I need to do it. For myself and for Emiliano. Even for her. I need to close this chapter for good." Don Alberto nodded understandingly. He had visited his ex-wife only once, shortly after the trial, to inform her personally that he had filed for divorce. Carmen had been sentenced to 12 years in prison for attempted murder, assault, corporate fraud, and other minor charges. Psychiatrists had diagnosed her with narcissistic personality disorder with antisocial traits, but had determined that she was fully aware of her actions. "Would you like me to accompany you?" the old man offered. Mariana smiled gratefully. "Daniel will go with me, but thank you for offering." As evening fell, Paola arrived with a radiant face and news that surprised everyone. She had met someone special, a professor at the university where she was studying, and they had gotten engaged. "I wanted you to be the first to know," she explained, showing off a simple engagement ring. "And I also wanted to ask you, well, to attend the wedding. It would mean a lot to me." Daniel hugged his sister with genuine joy. "Of course we'll go." Paola looked at Mariana with some uncertainty. Despite their reconciliation, there was still a fragility in their relationship, scars that would take a long time to heal completely. "I would love for Emiliano to be the page boy," she added shyly. Mariana felt a wave of unexpected emotion. It was a gesture of inclusion, of family recognition that she would never have expected from the old Paola. "He'll be a lovely page boy," she replied with a sincere smile, reaching out to take her sister-in-law's hand. That night, after putting Emiliano to bed and saying goodbye to their visitors, Daniel found Mariana on the terrace, gazing at the stars with a thoughtful expression. "What are you thinking about?" he asked, sitting down next to her and putting his arm around her shoulders. "How much everything has changed," she replied, resting her head on his shoulder. How lucky we are, despite everything we've been through. Daniel kissed her forehead gently. Are you still determined to visit my mother tomorrow? Yes, Mariana affirmed. I need to look her in the eyes one last time, not out of revenge or hatred, just to show her that I survived, that her cruelty didn't destroy me. The next morning, the Women's Social Rehabilitation Center in California welcomed Mariana and Daniel with the cold impersonality typical of penitentiary institutions. After passing through exhaustive security checks, they were led to a small visiting room where Carmen Montero was already waiting for them. 2 years of confinement had left their mark on the once elegant woman. Her hair, once dyed an impeccable brown, now showed extensive gray. Her face, stripped of the makeup that had always been her armor, revealed deep wrinkles and a sickly pallor. But most striking were her eyes. That haughty, domineering gaze had been replaced by something Mariana never thought she would see in her: defeat. You came, Carmen said simply, in a voice that barely resembled the imposing woman she had once been. Yes, Mariana replied, sitting down in front of her while Daniel stood slightly behind her, like a protective presence. Carmen glanced briefly at her son, but finding nothing but coldness in him, she turned her attention back to Mariana. You look well, she commented, almost with surprise. I thought it would have affected you more. It did affect me, Mariana acknowledged calmly. I had nightmares for months. The scar still hurts when it's cold, but I decided not to let your hatred define my life. Carmen fidgeted nervously with her hands. For the first time in her life, she seemed at a loss for words. How is my grandson? She finally asked. Daniel then intervened, his voice sharp as a knife. That's none of your business. Emiliano doesn't know you, and never will. Carmen nodded, as if she had expected that response. I understand. We didn't come here to talk about the child, Mariana clarified. I came because I needed to see you one last time. I needed you to know that I survived your contempt, your violence, that your son and I built a beautiful life, full of love and respect. Everything you tried to take away from us. Carmen's eyes filled with tears, something neither of them had ever seen before. I know, she whispered. I know, and I'm sorry. Every day here, every night I can't sleep. I think about what I did, what I lost. Are you really sorry? Mariana asked skeptically. Or are you just sorry about the consequences? You're sorry to be here, to have lost your status, your freedom. Carmen was silent for a few moments, as if she were really considering the question. At first I was only sorry about the consequences, she admitted with surprising honesty. But over time, I've had to really look at myself in the mirror, see what I've become, and it's terrifying. Daniel, who had vowed to maintain an emotional distance during this visit, felt a crack in his armor. For a fleeting moment, he saw in that worn-out woman the mother she had once been before ambition and control consumed everything. The therapist says it will be years before I can fully understand the damage I caused, Carmen continued. That maybe I'll never fully understand it, because there's something broken in me, something that's always been broken. Mariana nodded slowly. She hadn't come looking for apologies or remorse, but hearing this glimpse of self-awareness was more than she had hoped for. I didn't come to forgive you, she said finally. I don't think it's my place to do so, nor do I think it's what you're looking for. I came to tell you that I no longer fear you, that you no longer have power over me, over us. Carmen then looked her straight in the eye, and for the first time, Mariana saw something resembling respect in her. You're strong, the woman acknowledged. You always were. Maybe that's why I hated you so much. I saw in you the strength that I pretended to have. The guard approached to indicate that visiting time was about to end. Mariana stood up, feeling an invisible weight lift from her shoulders. Goodbye, Carmen, she said simply. We won't see each other again. Daniel, who had said little more than a few words during the entire visit, looked at his mother one last time. Take care, he murmured, a small but meaningful gesture of humanity toward the woman who had given him life. Despite everything, as they left the prison, the California sun greeted them with its usual warmth. Daniel took Mariana's hand in his. How are you feeling? He asked, studying her face with concern. Mariana took a deep breath, savoring the fresh air. the light, the life pulsating around her. Liberated, she replied with a serene smile, as if she had finally let go of a weight she didn't even know she was carrying. They got into the car and set off on the road back home, where Emiliano was waiting for them under the care of Don Alberto and Paola. As they left the prison behind, Mariana looked out the window at the green fields, the houses, the people going about their lives, oblivious to the drama that had been hers. "You know what?" she said suddenly. "I think we should plan a vacation, the three of us, maybe to the beach. Emiliano has never seen the sea." Daniel smiled, intertwining his fingers with hers. "Sounds perfect to me." And as they drove down the highway, Mariana closed her eyes briefly, grateful for every blow, every tear, every difficult moment that had paradoxically led her to this life she now cherished deeply. A life built not on fear or manipulation, but on love, respect, and true strength. The strength that comes not from dominating others, but from knowing and valuing oneself. The future stretched out before them like a blank canvas, ready to be painted with the vibrant colors of hope and freedom. A freedom that Mariana had earned not only by confronting Carmen, but also by confronting her own fears. That part of her that once believed she was unworthy of love. And as the car continued on its way to the home where her son waited with open arms, Mariana knew with certainty that the real victory was not in the downfall of Carmen Montero, but in the rebirth of Mariana Lopez, a woman who had entered the fire and emerged not consumed, but forged into a steel stronger and brighter than before.